Hello and welcome to some more Star Citizen. I wanted to talk about issues that the 3.9 branch had with its deployment, backend services, servers and accessibility that caused a huge amount of problems with players throughout the patch cycle, and especially during Fleet Week and the FreeFly event, and also things that CIG are sort of doing at the moment to try and prevent issues like this happening in the future. So what originally happened? Star Citizen has had various bugs and problems anyway as part of its sort of like playable alpha nature, but the deployment of the 3.9 branch, especially with 3.9.1 for me anyway, saw major accessibility problems and issues and service outages. With 3.9.0's initial deployment, there are a variety of issues with degraded services for at least the first half of May, and arguably up until now. Players were crashing at the character creation screen, there were account data issues that gave players the 16,007 error, which meant they couldn't play the game. Players could be invisible when they spawned, and characters were missing their movie glasses in some situations, and you couldn't access that UI. There were some hotfixes to address this, which did help some players, but not everyone. The 3.9 patch was supposed to save persistence of AlphaBC, so the in-game currency, items and ships, but there were bugs with transferring that data across from 3.8's branch, and that caused a lot of people to not get everything they had acquired. Some of their ships were missing in a lot of cases. A lot of people didn't have their AlphaBC. Basically, the data had inconsistently copied across, and a lot of players didn't have anything or had a lot of their stuff removed. It was reported that some players had limited access at restoring their accounts by doing a quick reset, although that certainly didn't work for me on one of my accounts. But there was no real way of getting those items back, and that was frustrating. A lot of these issues were due to some database issues and back-end services going down. Another database-related issue is that players could be left with no spawnable ships, for example. The major issues really being here that if something prevents you from playing the game or accessing the game, or you lose a large amount of progression, that's not something you want in an MMO. Also, commonly players suffer from 30k errors, even now. So 30k errors are an umbrella term for any type of disconnection from the server. This could be a server crash. This can be your client disconnecting because it times out. You could unplug your network cable. It could be anything similar or anything under that sort of umbrella. 30k errors are annoyingly horrible as they interrupt your gameplay. However, it's especially egregious and damaging to cargo haulers. Sometimes after you disconnect, if it was a client disconnect, you can reconnect to the server where you left off. Sometimes, great, bam, you're straight back where you were, as long as you haven't smashed into a planet or been destroyed. Commonly, however, and certainly if it was a server crash, you will spawn back at your last major landing zone you were at, and your ship will be lost and you'll have to reclaim it, which means that all of the cargo and stuff that was in that ship is gone. It's been destroyed effectively, and that's awful. So sometimes players would lose all of their money that they had accrued because they had invested in a huge amount of cargo. So it's not the same as being like destroyed by someone PvPing you or anything, because that's something that could happen as part of gameplay experience, but this is very much sort of like you've got a full caterpillar full of millions of AlphaBC and the server just decides you lose it. That's really annoying. There was a dev response explaining that 30k errors can never be fully fixed though due to their nature. If you pull out the cable from your modem, you'll get a 30k error. That's out of Cloud Imperium's hands. And this led to a dev explaining that something like a microwave, or something out of their hands as they say, could cause interference with your network connection, and that could cause you to be dropped, and that could be a 30k error, something like that. That could give you a timeout. In a attempt basically to illustrate that some problems will always be out of Cloud Imperium's hands, and he was giving a example there that's a little bit extreme, a little bit silly, but to sort of like underline a point. However, some people on Spectrum and Reddit took this to mean that the dev was blaming sort of players for connectivity issues, and it was their fault and CIG couldn't be responsible for it, and sort of like removing the blame from Cloud Imperium, which the dev clearly wasn't doing. They were trying to illustrate a point that was it's out of their hands. I really felt sorry for that dev as they took time to talk about 30k issues, and I thought that was actually quite a good explanation of they can never be entirely removed from the game. They can just sort of like remove a large portion of them and get the game generally more stable. Let's move on to the more recent broken access with Fleet Week. So 3.9.1 was deployed alongside a free flight week and game event. So this is where I had actually major issues along with a load of other players. Servers were down and then intermittently up and down when it came to logging on and accessing them. Players in Europe seemed to be significantly more affected by trying to log into the game. The launcher was giving errors, things like that. You literally just could not get into the game for a lot of people. And many players couldn't create a character when they were even in-game. You couldn't get past the character creation screen. You had to sort of fiddle around putting it into a windowed mode to get through that. The original issues that were in 3.9.0 came back. There were account sync issues again, more 30k disconnections. A lot of players couldn't get into the game at all, and ones that did would get frequently disconnected. Even when you were in-game, there were problems with the mobiGlass and the character loadouts and inventories, stuff like that, so that lots and lots and lots of problems. This was a magnitude more problematic for Cloud Imperium because of that FreeFly event and a load of new players checking out the game. It's a big marketing thing. They want the game to be as playable as possible, and when you can't access it, that's a major deal. The problem here was, though, that it wasn't directly patch content causing the issue with any of the 3.9 branch sort of content or features there. That wasn't causing the issues. These issues could have happened with any deployment, and basically it was the servers being hammered a lot by new and old players all trying to log in at once. There was a lot of people trying to get into the game, and it was largely database problems, login problems, back-end services going down, them being overburdened, them not being robust. There was no redundancy there. Though I'm not diminishing that general server instability also played a part, and obviously a new patch can have lots of unforeseen errors and consequences and bugs as well, and there were certainly a lot of extra bugs there, but it was the accessibility that's the major issue. Gameplay-wise and accessibility-wise, 3.9 and 3.9.1 have been a bit of a failure. You haven't been able to get in the game when you wanted to. That Fleet Week would have been a lot better for a lot of more players if they were able to access the game and there weren't all these problems going on. However, they did make over 15 million during May in funding, Cloud Imperium, so they were obviously doing something right, and there are a lot more players playing the game now. This has also led to some important updates which are being deployed now and for 3.10.0, the next major patch. So this is deployment of more robust services and, importantly, redundancies for some services. At time of recording, there's a bit of a back-end service update going on. The RSI platform is currently undergoing critical back-end infrastructure maintenance. While this work is taking place, the Galactopedia, ship upgrade tool, ship customizer, in-game groups, in-game chat, and long-term persistence may become inaccessible. So this is a load of microservices and services that are obviously part of the website, part of in-game, and part of the database set. We know that Cloud Imperium have been working on a load of these back-end services and a load of stability stuff and redundancies for a while now as well. In the more recent monthly report, we saw them talk further, with them fixing issues with lifetime persistence and player wallets. Work on the iCache and the general instance manager microservices continued, as did development towards a meshed loadout, the new refining mechanic, and long-term persistent services. They're now also able to run several instances of services at the same time to provide players with a better experience during events with peaking loads. These updates are critical for players to be able to enjoy the Star Citizen experience more stably and reliably. It's an alpha and it gets buggy, but when you can't log in or you get constantly disconnected, then you can't really play the game. As they build towards more services like server meshing, like having the game in a much more playable state that isn't an alpha anymore, when it's more towards an MMO, you can't have these issues where if the game crashes, you lose everything that you were doing. The plan is to have much more stable deployment with 3.10.0 and future patches. We should see Cloud Imperium trying to have Alpha UEC and ship transfers from 3.9 to 3.10, with that progress being carried over more reliably for more players. Not just for some players, but they're going to try and do it for all players. But please remember that they always reserve the right to do a full long-term persistence reset if they need to. And sometimes they might need to. They might go, well, we're able to get this much more stable, and future problems might be much easier to solve, but we need to do a server wipe. So bear that in mind. Databases of player ships, items, and Alpha UEC should be a bit more robust, so issues with no ships in your hangar and similar issues shouldn't happen as commonly, as the databases are much more able to connect to the in-game services and talk to each other, and if there's a problem, they should be able to reconnect, things like that. There's redundancy in those servers, there's the ability for them to connect to, oh, this one's gone down, so I'll just reconnect to this other one. In fact, that redundancy in back-end services and log-on servers and things like that should actually be very, very useful for the game. So why has it taken so long? Well, they've been building these back-end services for a while. They just haven't all fully been put together yet, as they were constantly evolving their game and their netcode and stuff like that. They didn't want to keep on having to redo the same work. So they weren't at a stage where they could put this stuff in-game. And now they're starting to build on to server meshing. They're starting to build on to a lot of this long-term persistent stuff and the iCache and core server components all coming together, allowing for this stuff to be put in the game. And something that really requires this to be in a lot better state that's coming with 3.10 is the player trading app. So they're adding this to the game, allowing players to send currency, FEBC, or merits to any other player, be they on or offline. So this is a major change to the game, as it gives sort of Alpha UBC much more of a value as it can be transferred. So that's important, that's big. If you're doing a mining operation or a big cargo run with an org, you can share profits much more readily. You can organise and transfer payments to someone, and then they can buy a ship. So you can set up your own bounties, you can have less tangible trades, you can use that money to buy ships. And those ships will persist on your account until there's a long-term persistence reset. So bear that in mind. Sometimes there's going to be those wipes, but I just think it's a huge upgrade and update to the game having that. I'm interested to know your experiences of Star Citizen 3.9's branch and 3.9.1 during Fleet Week. Do you think that 3.10.0 will see a more stable deployment, and that work on back-end services could see servers and database issues diminished somewhat? Whatever your thoughts, I'd love to hear from you in the comments below. Every month we have a ship giveaway. For June it's for an Aspira Tavaran Prowler dropship and Star Citizen game package, kindly supplied by Cloud Imperium. Just comment on any of my videos made during June to be in for a chance of winning that. Oh, what's that? What am I shilling for this month, you ask? Well, the same thing I shill for every month. If you need a VPN, then check out NordVPN. It's a cheap, fast, and has a load of benefits over free VPN services. Consider it for security, privacy, protection, content accessibility, and even to help with bandwidth limits. You also get a shipload of money off via the links below. I am NordGamer. I was going to go with BoredVPN, but that didn't sound right. NordGamer sounds perfect for my shillingness. Also, if you're looking for a gaming PC or a gaming PC upgrade, instead consider Shadow. It's a subscription-based service that starts around $11 or £12 or some euros, and that streams a Windows 10 system to your device, be it another PC, laptop, phone, or TV, using the powers of the internet, and there's a wide range of hardware to meet your needs. It means you don't have to maintain your own rig, so if you dream of 4K gaming and you don't want to break the bank, it's an option. All their services are very suitable for Star Citizen, but there may be a waiting list based on what country and state you are in.